Hey everybody, welcome in. Andrew Lucio again, Kyle Waple, my co-owner. And today we are going to be talking about why people are playing certain decks and why certain decks aren't being played. So let's get right into it. Okay, so today, let's go down the list. Let's just start with WTR and work our way all the way to Tales of Aria. And we're going to talk a little bit specifically about why a deck looks attractive and then why people don't play the deck. And we're just going to go deck to deck, hero to hero. So there's going to be timestamps down. You can click to your hero to kind of get an idea of what we think is very attractive about the hero and why people may not be playing it. We're going to talk about everything today. Let's start with Rhino. I love Rhino, Brute Nation. Brute Nation? Let's just start with Rhino. What is attractive about Rhino?
Well, you get your blood rush card. That's about it.
Okay. You think that's the only thing attractive?
You have intimidates, but like that's not a card. That's your ability, right? So like no card sticks out.
So
Just
you're gonna see Kyle writing things down today because we want to keep notes of what we're talking about here. So effectively, with Rhinar, we've got three things that I think are super attractive about the deck. Okay. Mm-hmm. The first thing that is really, really attractive is Rhinar, just like every other hero, and you're going to see this as like an overlay thing, has specialization cards, right? So we have Sand Sketch Plan. Sand Sketch Plan says, here's 2 action points. Go into your deck, get any card you want. You can tutor any card you want. Here's 2 action points. That feels kind of nice.
Let's grab any card, right?
That's
interesting.
That's interesting, right? Like you can go grab a Command and Conquer if you want to threaten their arsenal. You can go and get a Sigil of Solace. If you want to gain 3 health, you can go get anything you want. I mean, the sky's the limit. But then before you can do anything that even play a Sigil of Solace or anything else, you got to discard a random card. So you could discard that Sigil of Solace. So it's like there's a lot of little, high risk, high reward things that go with Sand Sketch Plan, but that's a very attractive card. And when people read, they're like, I think I could do some things with that. And it's very attractive. Also, if you discard a 6 or higher, you get the Intimidate. And that's the second thing that's really attractive, but we'll get there in a second. So Sand Sketch Plan, very attractive card. Alpha Rampage. It's a 3 cost, 9 damage that could potentially rip 2 cards out of your opponent's hand. Feels very sexy. People like high damage cards. It's only cost 3. I'm going to get rid of basically my hand, potentially only have 1 card left, the arsenal, and potentially set myself up for a 5-card hand. But the point is, it feels good on paper. It looks good. It's very attractive. Okay, so we got that. That's number 1, the specialization cards. Okay, and we talked about each one. The second thing, which I mentioned earlier, Intimidate, the hero ability. So if we're looking at Rhinar's character card and we're looking at the ability, we rip a card out of our opponent's hand randomly so they can't, have that defense reaction, or maybe they don't have the blue card that they need in their hand to stop or to pay for the defense reaction that's in their arsenal. Maybe they've got an unmovable in the arsenal and they need a blue. So now if they wanted to play it and we rip that blue out of their hand and all they have left is red, they'd have to pitch 3 cards to play that unmovable. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe we're not going wide enough, which that's the thing that Rhino doesn't do. And the third thing that is very, very, very attractive, you mentioned it earlier, Blood Rush Bellow.
I think that's the only fun card.
It's super fun, right? It's a really, really fun card, especially when you're using claws, because you get to go 5, go again, 5, go again, and then right on the tail end, you should have enough from arsenal or a 2-card hand to go 1 big attack for 8, and potentially push through 18 damage on a turn, and that feels really nice. It feels really, really good. Why isn't he being played?
Because he's boring.
Oh, that's it?
Here's a big swing. That's it. You get 1 big swing, and you're not Bravo. Who does it better and cooler?
Better and cooler?
Better and cooler. What can I say?
Better and cooler. Okay. I don't really have the context there on that, but he's not Bravo. In the sense that he doesn't have on-hit effects? Sure.
Yeah, on-hit effects. Those are fun.
Yeah, but I mean, Bravo's not really going much wider than we are.
No. That's why
he's going taller than we are.
A big attack isn't that exciting.
He's consistently going taller than we are. But we'll move into Bravo right after Rhino since we're going ahead and talking about them. But I think the real reason that people aren't playing Rhino is because there is an element of randomness that all of these discard effects bring, and it makes it harder for you to be able to plan out your turn because you don't know what card you're going to have in your hand after you have to do your attacks. And a lot of Rhinor's attacks force you to discard a card. So it turns a 3-card hand into a 1-attack turn. And that feels bad too. So there's a lot of reasons for that. Okay, so let's move to Bravo. Bravo. Go ahead.
So Bravo, all of his attacks have crush effects. You do a certain amount of damage, you're going to get on hit effect. You can get rid of their arsenal card. You can stop them from having go again. You can rip 2 cards out of their hand, which is way more exciting.
So on hit effects, that's very attractive. Like if you're a new player getting into the game, you see that, you're like, man, that's pretty good. But I think also he's able to reduce the cost of his attacks with tectonic plating. And on top of that, he's swinging with really big attacks that most of the time only require a 2-card commitment as far as resources go. And he can effectively run 50% blue.
Yep. Because
all those cards cost 3 or higher, so that means Anathos, his weapon, goes from a 4-hammer swing to a 6-hammer swing.
Yep.
And that feels really good. Very resource efficient. Because we're not losing a lot of cards to the graveyard because we had to do certain attacks or we had to overpay for attacks or whatever the case may be. And we can effectively block and still push in a lot of aggression. So, very, very attractive. Super attractive. What are his specializations? Almost the same thing, right? Showstopper. I go into the deck, I find whatever Guardian attack I want, and then at the beginning of my next turn, Showstopper's going to break, and I get to draw another card. So now, if I just sat there and took all the damage to the face, I've got a 5-card hand, 1 card in the arsenal, things feel really good. Or, more likely, I'm going to use 3 of those cards to block, and you're going to do nothing, and then I'm going to use the other 2 and commit those to a big attack. It just depends on how the turn goes, but I can do that if I want to, and that's what Showstopper does. And then finally, I tell people all this time, the Infinity Gauntlet, Crippling Crush, is just insane. Those specializations. So Crippling Crush is an 11 damage attack. Naturally costs 7, but you can reduce it down to 6 with your Tectonic, right? Making your search token going down to 6. And 11 feels like a lot. And then if that wasn't enough, the Crush effect, if you deal 4 or more damage, they have to discard 2 random cards. So you're a new player getting into the game. Someone tells you about Bravo. Someone tells you about this. And, man, your head just starts to swim because all of that looks very attractive. And then the question becomes, why are people not playing him? People are playing him.
Yep.
Okay?
Very popular.
He's a very popular hero. Super popular. And he's been in the game since the very beginning. His ability on his hero card, when you look at Bravo's hero card, he has built-in dominate. And what that means is I only have to get you down to right around 20. And every time I get you down to 20, I'm going to commit to high defense and 1 dominated attack. And I can do that. All I have to do is defend, swing Anathos, set a card for Arsenal. Next turn, swing 1 big dominate. Still have a card to Arsenal. So I can do it the next turn. And then I just get you into this death spiral effect with them. It's very good. Very powerful.
His hero ability is really cool, too. Just
yes.
Giving anything dominate is...
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
makes your big attacks even cooler.
It looks really good. Let's go to Dorinthia.
So Dorinthia is all about swinging her sword. And all of the things that they give her are ways to either increase the sword preemptively and give it go again, or as an attack reaction, and usually to get some sort of reprise effect if your opponent blocks at it. So Steel Blade would be her first.
So the first specialization? So we got Steel Blade Supremacy, okay? We're talking about a pay 1 plus 2. Every time you hit, you get to draw a card. That is absolutely 100% insane for a deck that effectively only wants to use its weapon. So if you want to talk about card efficiency, Dorinthia does it better than anybody. And then, just to make it even better, the majority of her cards have Reprisal. And Reprisal says, hey, would you like to play the game? What do you mean? Well, part of this game is when I attack you, you can use cards in your hand to defend. But if you do that, I get a big bonus.
Yep, yep.
Oh, I don't want to play the game then. Oh, okay, that's good for me. I'm just going to keep swinging the sword at you. And then our other specialization is Iron Song Determination, right? Is that the other one?
I think it's Singing Steelblade.
Singing Steelblade. Yeah. So the other specialization is Singing Steelblade. So Singing Steelblade says, pay 1, put it down. Reprisal. Did you try to play the game? Oh, you did. Okay, cool. I'm going to go into the deck, and I'm going to get any attack reaction that I want, and then I'm going to play that right now. And considering that you've already defended, and I know I can get reprisal effects, I'll just go get whatever I need at the moment. Whether that's glint or anything else. It just feels crazy to think that if I play against Dorinthia and I try to play the game and I just try to live, she punishes me even harder than she's already punishing me because she's so super efficient, resource efficient. It's really good. Why aren't people playing her? She's very good. I think she's very good, but why aren't people playing her?
I think her playstyle is very static. I don't feel like she gets to be very unique. You always are front loading or using attack reactions, and then people learned because of reprise, it's an action your opponent takes, right? Like you block.
Yeah.
People have gone, well, what if I just don't block? And so now I take a hit, and Dorinthia's ability lets you get another swing, which
Absolutely.
is cool. Lets you swing the sword again. Most classes can't do it.
Yeah.
But then, like, if I just take both swings, you get a token. But, like, I'm just going to swing harder at you.
So I think we've gotten to a point in the game where people have really, really become aware of their life not being as crucial and that it's just another resource in the game. So ignoring certain hits and not blocking whatsoever or over blocking in the early part of the game really turns off her strategy. It makes her less attractive as a deck, and that's why you haven't seen 30, 40 Dorinthias in the field. But 30, 40 Dorinthias in the field, I think it would still do very, very well. I really do. All right, so last one in WTR, we're going to move right into
Katsu.
And boy, is Katsu good. Everything that Katsu does on paper looks absolutely amazing and feels good. Katsu's own ability, specifically built into the hero card itself, says, hey, did you hit with an attack action card? Any attack action card. Oh, you did? Well, take a card in your hand that you don't want, any 0, throw it over there into the graveyard, and then just go search for the deck for any combo card that you might need at the moment. That's huge. That's extremely huge, especially when a lot of these combo cards, they just let you do bigger and better things. All right? His specializations, let's talk about them. First specialization, Beginchi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Release.
And then the second specialization, Lord of Wind.
Lord of Wind.
And they work together. These two cards work together, right? So the first one says, hey, did you play Whelming Gustwave? I'm like, oh, yeah, I did. Because, big brain plays. Going to put it down. So I play the Mugenshi release. It only costs 1. I put it down on the board, and now it says I'm 5. And if I hit, I can go get as many Lord of Winds as I want. And all of the Surging Strikes, Whelming Gustwaves, and Mugenshi releases that I've used up to that point, when I play the Lord of Wind, I can pay, and I can put those cards back into the deck, and then the Lord of Wind that I played gets +1 damage for each one that I put back in.
Yep.
On a turn where I really went Kadachi, Surging Strike, probably for 5, Whelming Gustwave, probably for 4, Mugenshi for 5. Now I'm going to end those 5 attacks with this last one and potentially put in 6 cards for an 8 damage attack coming across the board.
Very, very appealing. Very
Feels-
big damage turn.
Feels insane. So, why aren't people playing?
I think people are playing Katsu. He's pretty popular.
He was probably, I would say, in the very top of the meta for a very long time. But as we shifted, people moved away. And I think the reason that a lot of people moved away is because Katsu is very sequence-oriented. It's not an easy deck. It's fun, and when you're a new player, all that seems very attractive. But when you start to actually play Katsu and you want to get to the top echelon of Katsu players, sequencing is super important in that deck. And you have to invest a lot of time in figuring out what attacks you can throw away, what attacks you can block with, how and when to block, and how to conserve your resources. So I think Katsu is very sequence-oriented, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people moved away from Katsu and moved on to other decks that we're going to talk about later in the show. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's move over to Arcane. We're going to start with Viserai. I think Viserai is the best place to start when it comes to Arcane Rising. Viserai is so unique in what he does. All right, his ability on the card. All right, so we got the hero card. Says right there, you're going to play a non-attack action. Any non-attack action doesn't matter. Boom, abilities online. Now, every time you play a Runeblade card, we're going to make a rune chant. What is a rune chant? It's damage stored that you get to explode onto your opponent when you're ready to do so. Your opponent can't interact with these tokens in any form or fashion, so they just sit on the board, steadily building. It is not uncommon as a Viserai player to build 25, 30 rune chants. It's not uncommon. That's actually a very easy thing to do. And then let's talk about the specializations. Arcanite Ascendancy. We got a 6 cost, 5 damage, dominated attack that says, if I hit every point of damage that I deal, make that many rune chants. That's insane. And by the way, here's the kicker. I'm reduced in cost by 1 for every rune chant you have on the board. So effectively, I'm 0. I'm a 0 cost, 5 dominated attack that just makes more rune chants. Now that feels really good. And become the Arcanite. So we talked earlier about the WTR heroes and their ability to go into the deck and get any card they want. Become the Arcanite. It taxes you a little bit. It says, hey, you can do that, but you can only get Runeblade cards, and you have to give away something that is the opposite. So if I want to go for a Runeblade attack, I can give up any non-attack. If I want to go for a Runeblade non-attack action, I can give up any attack that I have in my hand. And as long as I do that, I can go get the card that I need when I need it and effectively pop off and do a lot of things. Feels really good, I think. I think it feels absolutely a lot of variety. Why aren't people playing?
I feel like he's never been at the top of the game, and there's just a lot of work you have to do to actually get there. I think Viserai has a lot of like decision making that people aren't used to. Sometimes you stack up all the rune chants, you build it up, you try to have a big play, and then sometimes you just kind of go to like a more mid-range strategy and you just swing your rune blades out or your rune chants out and just do damage. I don't think it's as cut and dry as a lot of decks, and I think it just scares people away.
I think we come back to the same thing with Katsu. The reason people moved away from Katsu is because people eventually realized, oh, if I really want to be good with this deck, my sequencing matters a lot. So with Viserai, there's no easy entry for Viserai. Viserai's learning curve was incredibly steep right from the beginning, and then to be really good with Viserai, it's even steeper because the sequencing absolutely 100% matters, because of the fact that there are going to be times when your whole turn is going to be make a rune chant, pass. And that doesn't seem sexy at all. That feels like, it feels boring. It feels bad because you feel like you're not interacting with your opponent or you're not engaging in the game. But then those turns where you can pop off, they feel amazing. So it's like there's a balance there, and new players, they're not going to flock to that. And that's why when we go to big tournaments or big events, we don't see 162 Viserais. We see maybe 8 at most.
Yeah.
It feels weird, but I think that's the reason why. Let's move to Dash, okay? Dash has a lot of things going on for her. She's doing really good when it comes to resource efficiency because of the fact that a lot of her abilities are, spend resources, put steam counters, do things, shoot your pistol, boom, 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 boom. That's a lot of what she does. Her specializations are a little more unique in the sense that they're very, very niche to her whole equipment plan. Her first specialization is Techlo Core. It's an item. She's the only one that can use it. I mean, we don't have any other mechanologists in the game right now except for the Data Doll or whatever. But I don't look at anything that's not classic constructed. But the point is, Techlo Core says beginning of the turn, remove a steam counter, make 2 resources, and in a deck that can go as wide as she can with her boost ability, because literally you can just put nothing but mechanologist cards, and boost says if you take the top card off the deck and put it into your banish zone, and it is a mechanologist card, go again. So she can go 0 to 60, 0 to 60. With the 2 resources that she has up, zipper hit, and then still be able to do other things before that last zipper hit. She could activate her Techlo Heart, and then the heart says, okay, pay 1, so now you're down to 1. Take the top 2, put them into the banish zone. Well, we've already made sure that everything's mechanologist, right? So now we went to 3, and then we go zipper hit, and we still have 1 to load the pistol and shoot for 2. That's insane. It's 5 attacks. That's really, really good. And then conversely, she can run in this super defensive build where she just puts items on the board and she uses those items to increase the damage of her pistol while she's effectively blocking by putting defense reactions into her arsenal and mitigating a ton of damage. And then she can just take it to the long game. What's her other specialization? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I'm actually not sure.
Is it the adrenaline rush one? The one where you play it and then you draw a card and then every time you boost you get an action point?
High Octane?
High Octane, is that hers?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Is
We're not really.
Genius not a specialization?
Spark of Genius? The one where she tutors for items? No, I don't think that's a
I
specialization.
don't know which one's her specialization.
The only one I know is Tech Lower. Why aren't people playing her?
I think she's like in the top 5 of the most played. Her defensive build's really popular. She's really good control. She can compete with Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like her issue is just it's a control strategy, so it's not as easy to just pick up. There's a lot more defense. There's a lot more defense reactions. People don't just look at that and just gravitate towards that play style. Yeah, that's all I can really think of for her.
Look, as far as the whole steampunk element of it, I think that there's some attraction there with newer players. But once you start getting into the mold of what Mechanologist wants to do, it feels like an aggro deck that just hasn't really found its feet.
With all the boost stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get
and
that.
and that's what I think why a lot of people don't play Dash, because she's not really doing anything other than aggressively attacking you and thinning her deck out at the same time. And with a lot of other decks that have very good fatigue strategies, she just doesn't feel like the right call. It's a very niche hero that has a very small following. You don't see a ton of Dash. I think at tournaments that we've been going to recently, we've seen like 10, 15 Dash. It's not like a huge number. Anyways, let's move on to Azalea. Azalea feels absolutely insane and has some of the best specializations in the game that look extremely attractive. Plus, her whole attack style, the whole Ranger attack style, is extremely thematic. The way that the Ranger will attack is they will load their arsenal with their arrow before they actually shoot it. So when you're actually playing it, it feels super fun to load an arrow, like you're pulling it out of the quiver and loading it before you actually attack it, because that's the way arrows have to be fired. Like, that's literally the only way they can attack, is if they're already in your arsenal. So you have a bow. The Death Dealer is good. It's a good bow. You pay 1, you load the arrow, you draw a card, it replaces itself, you have resources floating, so you're able to do more things. You have your bow. And then you also have all these reload effects that say if your arsenal's empty, you can put a card into it. Her specializations are probably some of the best in the game. She has Red in the Ledger. Red in the Ledger says if you do even 1 point of damage, they get 1 action on their next turn. Doesn't matter if they have more action points. Doesn't matter if they have go again. It does not matter. The first time they play an action, that is it. No more actions. They can play instants. They can do some things, some trickeries with instants. But other than that, that's it. Their turn's over. Red in the Ledger, very, very good. Knock the Death Whistle. Go into your deck. Find any arrow that you want. Doesn't matter what it is. Shuffle your deck. Take that arrow. Put it on top. Azalea's ability, if you're looking at her hero card, her ability says, hey, take the top card, put it face up into the arsenal. After you take the card in the arsenal, put it at the bottom of the deck. If it's an arrow, it gains Dominate. Free Dominate. Feels kind of nice. A lot of setup, very cool thematics, looks very attractive when everything's laid out on paper. So why aren't people playing it?
Because it's not good. you did all that work to do what someone just played a card for. It's like you have to do all these gimmicks just to give the arrow Dominate, and then you play it, and you feel good, and then you're like, all right, and your opponent's like, all right, what's the next arrow? And you're like, well, I don't have any more action points.
So I can't go wider.
That's it. That is 6 damage, and it has Dominate, maybe.
And this is not to say that you can't do something cool and interesting, and we have some new cards that allow Azalea to do more. But at the end of the day, what we're really conveying to you is that when you have to take an extra step to efficiently do damage, other decks become more attractive. Other decks just become the thing that you want to play because you don't have to take as many steps. Again, this all comes back to that whole sequencing thing. The more you make me want to sequence as a newer player, the more I don't want to play that deck. And that's just the long and the short of it. Azalea and all the other Rangers, they suffer from the fact that they have to put something in the arsenal first in order to attack, when everybody else can literally just lay a card from their hand and go boom, boom, boom. And that feels bad. All right, Kano. Kano, wizard, the only wizard we have. 30 health right away. I don't like it.
I hate it.
Right away, 30 health. But what's attractive about Kano? Well, what's attractive about Kano is Kano can play things on the opponent's turn. And you kind of get like an extra turn. And so like even if your opponent's pushing against you, you can still pop off and do a lot of things. What are Kano's specializations? Well, the first specialization that Kano has is Lessons in Lava. Lessons in Lava says, hey, I'm going to do some damage. And then after I do this damage, if I did any damage at all, I can go into the deck and find a card that is equal to or less than the damage that I dealt, and I can put it at the top of the deck, which Kano's ability, if you're looking at Kano's hero card, says pay 3 blue, reveal the top card if you want to, and if you do, if it's a non-attack action, play it as an instant. That's any non-attack action. Does not have to be wizard specific. It can be anything. It could be a potion. It could be a plunder run. I don't know why you would put plunder run in there, but the point is you can put whatever you want in there, and literally as long as it's a non-attack action, you can play it and you can activate its ability. So with that being said, you the other specialization that he has is blazing and blazing aether, which I'm sure that's what it's called. I think it's called blazing aether. Right. So blazing aether says, hey, whatever arcane damage you dealt this turn, double it.
Do it again.
Oh no, it's do it again.
Do
That's
it
right.
again.
Do it again. Yeah. Well, double it. Not double it, but just do it again, right? So if I've dealt 15 over 5 attacks for 0, I can play this card, and then it says do another 15. Mm-hmm. And then if you, for whatever reason, if you had another one, that one would read 30. And of course, it's only reading the damage that was actually dealt. But the point is, that's what it does. And those seem very attractive, and the whole package looks really good. And you're like, man, I could be the one to crack this puzzle and make this deck work. And then, why don't people play the deck?
It just doesn't work. Sometimes it works. You have to do so much extra work. And then you're not really playing Flesh and Blood when you're playing Kano. It doesn't feel, you're not interacting with your opponent. Your opponent's not interacting with you. You're just trying to like solve your puzzle and try to get a, squeak a win in before your opponent can kill you. And it's just not that good.
Just doesn't feel as good. All right, so we're going to cut this first episode here. And we're going to come back to you in the second episode, and we're going to go over the Monarch heroes, and we're going to go over the Tales of Aria heroes. So come back with us and definitely take a look at those, and then we'll talk a little bit about the meta when we talk about Tales of Aria. That'll be an interesting conversation. Peace.